But what has transpired over these last 24 hours, and I say that because news broke yesterday morning, and then it became official when Sean Payton made the announcement that Russell Wilson was not going to be the starter and that Jarrett Stidham would start in Week 17 against the Chargers, that the information that started to come out first from the insiders seemed to be pro-team or from the team side of things, financial, that this was something that Denver was looking at and trying to avoid guarantees down the line. And then a report from Jordan Schultz, the Bleacher Report, who is connected to Russell Wilson, says, hold on a second, this is what really happened. The team didn't want him to play since basically the end of October because of those injury guarantees that were in his contract, and actually asked him to waive some of those guarantees, something that he did not want to do. And then Sean Payton came out and stood up at a podium and said it had nothing to do with money and that stuff. I believe that's all BS. I don't believe what Sean Payton is saying there. But what I do find so amazing is I feel the first 16 weeks of the season, and really all of last year as well, we have taken time, and as a whole, I feel that the opinion of Russell Wilson has been negative in terms of his playing style. Yet all of a sudden in the past 24 hours, I feel there is this surge for Russell Wilson and the support, and now Sean Payton is made out to be the bad guy, and it's just something that I'm having a difficult time getting a grasp on.
Why? I feel like I think it's in front of us why people are feeling for Russell Wilson. Because I think at the start of the season, kind of like you mentioned, no one expected him to do anything. There was already so much criticism coming into this season for Russell Wilson. And so we started that way. Everybody's like, oh, is he going to be able to do anything with Peyton? Then it was that whole at the beginning, Peyton talking smack on Nathaniel Hackett. Just the beginning, there was so much drama already surrounding that team, and the fingers at the start of the season, I think, were pointed at Russell Wilson because Peyton coming in to be the savior. But now, after watching Denver put together, a 5-game winning streak, where Wilson didn't look terrible. Wilson had good games, moments where you were like, it's still in there. And then all of a sudden, you lose. You're not totally in the playoffs, but there's still a slim chance. And you kind of just pulled the rug from under Wilson. And I think that's what the fans are seeing. That's what NFL fans are seeing. Even if you're not a Broncos fan, you're seeing it right in front where it's like, but things were going okay. And then all of a sudden you're telling me it's because of money. Where was this before? It's a lot of he said. What is the truth? Who knows? I just think that's what it is that we all saw him put together something for the Broncos. And then now they're like, never mind.
The fact that you said Russell Wilson has looked not bad, kind of good, is completely accurate.
Yeah.
And there are certain numbers that if you wanted to make a graphic, you can make Russell Wilson look like the best quarterback in the AFC this year.
Yeah.
There are other numbers that would tell you otherwise.
Right.
And it's funny on how it is parsed out, because Isaac Lowenkron, who's at the news desk yesterday, was pointing out the tweets that Russell Wilson was actually liking.
Yeah.
And how they were obviously defending his case and what he has done on the field, and the report by Jordan Schultz and what he had. There's a lot of selective information out there.
Correct. That's a good way to put it.
And in fact, I can see through the BS that the Broncos are putting out right now and Sean Payton's putting out, because it doesn't make sense. To the point of the slim chance of the playoffs, if they would have beaten New England, it would have been a completely different story.
Right.
And so from this span, when you talk about that 5-game win streak, if Denver really wanted to bench him because they were worried about the $39 million being cashed in on the guarantee because of injury, then they would have benched him. But they didn't bench him because he was their best option to play. But what I find crazy is that people are pointing Sean Payton as the bad guy and as the meanie, because they saw what happened in Detroit a couple of weeks ago when he gave the tongue lashing to Russell Wilson on the sideline. Remember, Sean Payton, while he did take the job knowing Russell Wilson was the quarterback, Sean Payton didn't bring in Russell Wilson.
Right.
Sean Payton didn't say that's the guy we need to bring in from Seattle. Sean Payton has his own reputation to defend, and some may say that there are some things that are indefensible, and Bounty Gate and the season that he was suspended. All that stuff's fine. The one Super Bowl. He only won one Super Bowl was something that we've heard. Only one time did he raise the Vince Lombardi trophy. That makes a career for a lot of head coaches. I just look at it this way. Sean Payton has his offense. And while there may have been some compromise to Russell Wilson, it wasn't working out. So for the bar that we've set so low that Russell Wilson has barely reached, I don't mind Sean Payton saying, you know what, my future's here in Denver. We need to do something down the line. But because they asked him to take a pay cut or to eliminate a clause in the contract, I just find it funny that because of asking Russell Wilson, who's made millions upon millions upon millions in his career, to maybe not get those guarantees and to ask him to change his contract, that the Broncos are now painted in this corner where what we want from our athletes is, hey, perform and you will receive the money that you deserve. That's what we ask. We hated when rookies made all that money in their contracts 15 years ago. Now the game has changed. But when we look at Russell Wilson, why should he get a free $40 million?
So there's a couple things I want to say.
Doesn't make sense to me.
What you
Sorry.
just said. No, you're good. So one thing for sure is, obviously, I agree that Peyton had something to do with this. He didn't handpick Wilson from the beginning. He obviously had something to do with that. And I said this to you before we started. I'm really curious to know if I could sit down with Sean Payton and be like, what don't you like about Wilson? Is it that you just don't think he's good? Or do you not like him as a person for all of the antics that happen off field? Having his own office, the lunges on the airplane, kissing baby. I don't know. What is it? That's what I'm curious about. Now, this money thing is funny to me because I feel like the fans, like when I read comments on social media, it's kind of split. Like there's the fans that are like, get your money, you deserve it. So I feel like there's a lot that are like, no, Wilson shouldn't have to give up the money that he already signed a contract for. Why does he have to do that? And then there's the other side of it where it's like, my guy, if they said this to you, then you just fix the clause and then let's make everyone happy. So there's both sides, and like I want to say that you're right of like you've already made all this money. But at the same time, it's like, well, that was the contract he was given. So I don't know who to defend in this position.
And Sean Payton didn't give him the contract, but Sean Payton is looked at as the bad guy.
Well, he probably because I think it's very obvious that he's the reason that Wilson is being benched and Wilson is likely out the door.
But Wilson is the one that has not adjusted to the Sean Payton way of things. And the stats, we talked about the stats. The most noticeable stat of any of Russell Wilson's that you'll see is that he has actually thrown through 15 games this season. He has thrown for 500 yards less than he did a year ago. 50 yards, 100 yards is not a big deal, but 500 is a big deal. Touchdown passes, I don't care about touchdown passes. Those numbers are I compared them to RBIs. You know, it depends on if other guys are on base. Depends on where you are in a certain situation. They haven't been great in the red zone. They've been deficient in a lot of areas that Sean Payton has had success in. And so just the point about where they are with Russell Wilson now moving forward, it's just this, Monse. Sean Payton has a lot in this game. Has had a lot throughout the NFL season. And it's why yesterday I said he was brought in to bench Russell Wilson. He's the only one that could do it. You couldn't have brought in another Nathaniel Hackett. You couldn't have brought in another person to do it. But Russell Wilson, for all of the lame Broncos country, let's ride, let's do all these videos, for some reason, Sean Payton has just got under the skin. And it doesn't matter. People don't care about his time with the Saints. They don't care about the numbers. Sean Payton is just painted to be the villain. And I don't think Russell Wilson should get a free $40 million to just be there. Like this is the Broncos protecting themselves from a deal that went bad. That's all that it is. And there's just too much of a lean to Russell Wilson for how much shade we gave him over the last 18 months to now him becoming the victim in all of this. If he was truly a victim, we wouldn't have been giving him the shade for his play and what has gone on over the last 18 months.
If you signed a contract and they wanted to change it on you, would you be willing to give up the money? And that's just the whole thing. It's like it was a bad contract from the beginning, right? From the beginning, everybody was a little shocked when the Broncos gave this to Russell Wilson. So I would put myself in that position. I'm not going to lie. I don't know if I would just give away millions of dollars that I signed already a contract for. These 500 yards that you were just mentioning, I mean, What was the realistic expectation for Sean Payton and the Broncos this year? They've won more games than last year. They're still technically possibly in the playoffs. So they're already better. And I think him throwing for less yardage in the same amount of games and not an entire season goes to show that he's actually adjusted to what Peyton's asked him to do.
Interesting.
Interesting.
In terms of
like he's changed his style and tried to do what it is that Sean Payton is asking of him.
And again, it's so great about this because you know what's coming from the player side of things, you know what's coming from the coach side of things. You hear Russell Wilson just taking the dump off pass, not even looking over the middle, not even looking down the seams, which was one of the key parts of the Saints offense in the glory days of Drew Brees and when they're winning Super Bowls with Marcus Colston. It's just a lot of dump offs, a lot of, passes out in the flats. That's what it is. It's what actually, he did in Seattle. It's funny because the Saints and the Seahawks, when you look at their two matchups when they were in their prime, Russell Wilson is throwing to Doug Baldwin, Tyler Lockett. These are small guys. And I know DK Metcalf came later on, but truly, where the Saints would have, Marcus Colston's like 6'5", Jimmy Graham, and Jimmy Graham ends up being traded to Seattle, but enormous targets during that time. And so it's really a yin and a yang of like what they were trying to do and the opposite of all of it. So it doesn't match up, and it just seems like Peyton is. That's why I think the boiling over, by the way, in Detroit was, and I think we all know that now of what's happened over the last couple of weeks. But yeah, it was a match that wasn't made to work, and whether it was doomed to fail from the beginning, so be it. But Sean Payton was brought in for a reason, and Russell Wilson was there prior, and unfortunately for Russell Wilson, it's been 2 years of miserable football for him. He'll likely have an opportunity to change it somewhere else next year, but I just don't understand how we just switch so quickly and are just pro Russell Wilson, which, by the way, he's still going to get $37 million next year.
No,
this
and
is for
he's fine. If
another
he didn't
$40
get it.
in 2025. That's all that they're trying to protect themselves
Like
from.
it's not. Yeah, you don't blame the Broncos for what they're trying to do, right? And I hear what you're saying. Why all of a sudden is he the good guy? And I don't even know if he's the good guy. I think just people are like. I have a friend, Anthony. He's probably not listening. He's probably working. Whatever. Hi, Anthony. Big Broncos fan. And yesterday when we chatted with him about it, he was like, I just don't know why do this now. Like, we have a chance. He's playing pretty well. Why do this now to the fans? We still have a chance. So it almost seems like Wilson was out the door no matter what happened this season, unless you won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, it doesn't add up.
It does not add up. And I think that's why he's getting sympathy, because it does not add up, despite all of the antics off the field.
I don't have a problem with where Russell Wilson stands. I don't have a problem with Sean Payton. I just find the response to it.
Right.
Everybody else, if you're, a Broncos fan.
Yeah.
If you're listening in your car, when you're traveling on vacation, whatever the case is, I just the sense that I got through social media and reading the stuff that I did was that it's very, very pro Russell Wilson. But while Russell Wilson was stinking over the last year and a half, and he didn't stink, but hasn't been playing up to the level of his contract, that contract has been brought up, Monse. That's what they're saying. They're saying Wilson's $50 million a year for that. So the Broncos are trying to protect themselves, and now people are saying, hold on a second, you agreed to that deal, you agreed to that contract, like they're just this evil villain for being like, we just don't want to pay an extra $40 million for this. That's the only thing that we're trying to protect ourselves from.
But why did you do it in the first place? Why'd you do it in the first place?
Because the previous
ownership.
It felt that everybody else but Sean Payton felt that Russell Wilson was going to be their answer. Heck, they thought Nathaniel Hackett would be their coach for the next, 5 years and the next 10 years.
Or they were just like, we're going to sell the team anyway. Whatever. Let it go down. Who cares? We're going to sell it. That was the plan the whole time. We're going to leave the new ownership with this.
They tried a Walmart rollback.
Yeah,
that's what this is. They're like, why don't we just try to roll back the contract and get a different.
Yeah.
It's
roll back.
It's pretty insane, but yeah, Sean Payton feeling a lot of heat. He's done it before.